Several countries have announced new measures for travelers from mainland China, including increased tracking and surveillance and PCR testing. The move comes after China relaxed its strict COVID 19 measures, announcing on Monday that it will end quarantine requirements for international arrivals on January 8. The Biden administration announced that travelers from China will be required to produce a negative COVID 19 test starting next week. In a statement, US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has said that airline passengers will be required to show a negative test taken no more than 2 days before their departure starting 5th Jan. Travelers who test positive for COVID 19 more than 10 days before the flight can provide documentation of recovery instead of a negative test result, the agency said. The decision comes after other countries have implemented similar strategies, with Japan on Tuesday requiring travelers from China to be tested upon arrival. Malaysia and Taiwan has also announced new measures for travelers from mainland China, including increased tracking and surveillance and PCR testing. India has also announced safety measures like testing and medical scrutiny of passengers coming from China and other countries where the virus is prevalent. A statement by Foreign Ministry said inbound travelers to China are advised to take a nucleic acid test within 48 hours before their departure. A Myanmar military court has sentenced Aung San Suu Kyi to a further 7 years in prison for corruption, taking her overall jail time to 33 years. The country's former democratically elected leader has been under house arrest since a military ousted her government in a coup in February 2021. Since then, she faced 18 months of trials on 19 charges. She was sentenced on the final 5 charges she faced. A court found her guilty of corruption because she had not followed regulations in renting a helicopter for a government minister. She had already been convicted of 14 different crimes, including breaching COVID public safety rules, importing walkie talkies, and violating Official Secrets Act. She has denied all the charges against her. The 77-year-old Nobel laureate has spent most of her time in detention under house arrest in the capital. The UN Security Council called for her release last week. The first metro rail in Bangladesh was inaugurated in Dhaka by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on Wednesday. The train was flagged off in Dhaka for its first journey between Dayabari and Agragoan station. This is part of the ambitious Bangladesh project of mass rapid transit to be completed by 2030. Bangladesh entered another glorious era in its development journey with the inauguration of the metro rail in Dhaka. Approximately 12-kilometer long metro route which was opened to connect these two stations. 10 pairs of trains with 6 coaches each will run on this route initially for 4 hours, carrying about 5 lakh passengers daily. Inaugurating the metro line in Dhaka, Prime Minister Hasina said that with the opening of country's first ever metro rail, another feather was added to the crown of Bangladesh pride and development. She said, "It is a great achievement for Bangladesh, being the first high-speed rail service with a top speed of 110 kilometers per hour. It is also the first time that Bangladesh will be running an electric train in the country, which is environmentally safe." Built with the financial and technical support from Japan, the metro rail network after completion in 2030 will cover a total length of 129 kilometers, out of which 61 kilometers will be underground. Pope Emeritus died on 31st December at his residence at the Mater Ecclesiae Monastery, according to the Holy See Press Office reports. The health conditions of Pope Emeritus had worsened due to advancing age. Earlier, Pope Francis himself publicly shared the news about his predecessor's worsening health at the end of the last general audience of the year on 28th December. During a briefing at the Holy See press office at midday, the director told journalists that Pope Francis will preside over the funeral of the Pope Emeritus on 5th January in St. Peter's Square. He added that of Monday, the body of Benedict XVI will be lying in the state in the basilica, so that the faithful who wish to do so may pay their last respects with prayers and a final farewell. Pope Benedict XVI led the Catholic Church for less than 8 years until in 2013. He became the first pope to resign since Gregory XII in 1415. He spent his final years at the Mater Ecclesiae monastery within the walls of Vatican. His successor, Pope Francis, visited him there frequently. Condolences poured in from around the world as head of the Catholic Church in England and Wales. Cardinal Vincent Nicholas said Pope Benedict was one of the greatest theologians of the 20th century. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, French President, Italy's Prime Minister, German Chancellor, Archbishop of Canterbury were among others who expressed their condolences on Pope's death. Russia has rejected Volodymyr Zelensky's peace formula as a basis for negotiations. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Zelensky's idea of driving Russia out of eastern Ukraine and Crimea with Western help and getting Moscow to pay damages to Kiev is an illusion. Zelensky is pushing a 10-point peace plan that envisages Russia respecting Ukraine's territorial integrity and pulling out of its troops, but Moscow dismissed it on Wednesday, reiterating Kiev must accept Russia's annexation of 4 regions, Luhansk and Donetsk in the east and Kherson and Zaporizhia in the south. On Wednesday, Ukraine's recently liberated southern city of Kherson suffered intense mortar and artillery attacks from Russian forces. Kherson has remained under bombardment from Russian forces which had retreated to east bank of the river when the city was retaken in a major victory for Ukraine last month. Russia has announced to ban oil supplies to countries that have introduced price caps on Russian oil and petroleum products in response to Moscow's operation in Ukraine. According to the Kremlin's website, President Vladimir Putin has signed a decree saying the supply of Russian oil and oil products to foreign legal entities and individuals is prohibited if the contracts for these supplies directly or indirectly are using a price cap. The decree will be in effect for 5 months from 1st February until 1st July next year. The decree also said President Putin could give special permission to supply to countries that fall under the ban. The price cap, which was agreed upon by the G7 group of nations, Australia and the EU, came into force on the 5th of this month, prohibiting countries from paying more than $60 per barrel of Russian oil. Russia is the world's second largest oil exporter after Saudi Arabia. United Nations Security Council has expressed concerns over Taliban's decision to close all schools above 6th grade for girls in Afghanistan. The UNSC said that it is deeply alarmed by the reports that the Taliban have prohibited women and girls from attending universities. The UNSC called for the full, equal and meaningful participation of women and girls in Afghanistan. The Security Council called on Taliban to reopen schools and swiftly reverse these policies and practices, which represents an increasing erosion of the fundamental freedom of people in the country. The Taliban reportedly has also forbidden female employees of NGOs and international organizations from reporting to work. The UNSC said that the move would have a large and immediate impact on humanitarian activities in the country. US President Joe Biden has declared an emergency in the state of New York due to severe windstorm. According to a White House statement, the president has declared that an emergency exists in the state of New York and ordered federal assistance to supplement state and local response efforts due to emergency conditions resulting from a severe windstorm. It said the action authorizes the Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency, to coordinate all disaster relief efforts which have purpose of alleviating the hardship and suffering caused by the emergency on the local population and to provide appropriate assistance for required emergency measures. Earlier, reports said at least 12 states reported a total of 50 deaths. The city of Buffalo in northeastern New York State had the most casualty, with more than a meter of snow falling over the weekend. The storm stretching from Canada to the Mexican border has killed 56 people. In New York, particularly in Buffalo, authorities said bodies were discovered inside vehicles and from under snow banks as emergency officials went from car to car to search for more survivors. Hundreds of flights have been cancelled amid howling winds and sub-zero temperatures. Roadways remained littered with cars, buses, ambulances, tow trucks, and even plows buried beneath towering drifts, complicating efforts to clear snow blanketed streets and reach stranded residents in need of medical care. Indian tourists account for 17% of all tourist arrivals in Sri Lanka in 2022. Close to 120,000 tourists visited the island nation from India this year out of a total of 7 lakh. Russia was the second largest source market with close to 87,000 tourists this year. Sri Lanka's tourism minister said the government expects tourist arrival to hit 7,20,000 in total by the end of the year. The number of tourist arrivals in the year 2021 stood at just over 1,94,000. The minister lauded the recent rebound in tourism as an amazing response by international holiday travelers and said that tourism has picked up over the last 3 months. Tourism, which contributes over $4 billion to Sri Lankan economy annually, was hit hard for the last 2 years due to pandemic and lockdown. Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen has said that the mandatory military service would be extended from 4 months to 1 year. Speaking at a press conference in Taipei, President Tsai announced new plans to bolster Taiwan's defense in the event of an attack from Beijing. She said peace will not drop from the sky when Taiwan is on front line of authoritarian expansion. The decision to extend mandatory military service comes amid growing tensions with China, which claims the self-ruled island as its territory. President Tsai chaired a national security meeting to discuss reinforcing the island's civil defense. Taiwan's security team, including high-level officials from the Defense Ministry and the National Security Council, has been reviewing their military system since 2020 amid increasing threats from China. Taipei, which rejects Beijing's sovereignty claims, reported the largest ever Chinese Air Force incursion into the island's air defense identification zone with 43 Chinese planes crossing an unofficial buffer between the two sides. Russia says it is up to Ukrainian authorities to fulfill Moscow's proposals, otherwise army will decide. Flash floods force 45,000 people into evacuation centers in Philippines. Kosovo closes biggest border crossing after protesters blocked Serbian side. India has given permission to Nepal Electricity Authority to export additional 40 megawatts of electricity from two more hydroelectric projects. Benjamin Netanyahu sworn in as Israel's prime minister again.